when we were in service over in Italy, we didn't have any place we could buy on the base. We didn't have anything you could buy. But once a month they'd give us rations, and when you get your rations, you get 6 Coke and 6 beer. Well, the engineer, he sent me a Christmas card one year, and he said, "John, I remember the good old days when I could swap a Coke for a beer."
Yeah.
Us guys that didn't drink would swap with them.
I love it.
Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Over time, that exposure leads to cancer. Protect yourself with MagnaGrip. To learn more, visit magnagrip.com.
Welcome to Sons of the Flag Radio, brought to you by Fire Engineering Blog Talk Radio. A quick overview of Sons of the Flag. We were founded in 2012 to support just one burn survivor. Sons of the Flag is a nonprofit organization that is fully committed to revolutionizing burn care for veterans, first responders, and civilian burn survivors by providing funding for innovative research, fellowships for doctors to further their training in treating burn survivors, and support for those impacted by traumatic burns. So over the last several years as Sons of the Flag, we have partnered with prominent burn units throughout the country. And we can only do this with the support of all of our fellow citizens, first responders, and also military veterans. And so as Sons of the Flag, we're a completely nonprofit organization, and we're completely driven by the donations of all of our supporters. Quick overview of some of the donations you can provide to help one of our burn survivors is $50 for a meal while traveling, $175 will cover lodging for a night, $1,000 will air travel for a patient and their caregiver, and $2,000 to sponsor a veteran. If you want to look up any of our other information, you can go to www.sonsoftheflag.org, or you can look us up on all social media by typing in @SonsOfTheFlag. So as we begin all shows, we want to honor our fallen first responders since our last episode. So tonight we're honoring Benny Filagi, Andrews Pontius, Charles Parker, Matthew Tobin, James Kova, Daniel Foley, and Ty Voth. Let us take a moment of silence to honor them. So again, Sons of the Flag, I'm excited to bring you this interview. This has been one that I've been seeking for several years now, and I was able to trap him and corner him today to bring him in to talk to him for a little bit. So I want to introduce you guys to Johnny Rothfus. He's a Salina resident. I work up here for the Salina Fire Department in Salina, Texas, and Johnny has an extremely extensive, rich history in both military and as a firefighter. And as a core belief to me, I think that we have to, capture these types of stories, because as a society, I think that we're losing these stories, and I don't want them to ever go wayside. I want to be able to continue these legacies on as we move forward, and also honoring our history. And so, having Johnny here, I know his backstory, and every time I talk with him, I find a little bit more about him. And those of us who are listening, he's got a couple books in front of me, and it's truly amazing to see from his time when he was in the U.S. Army, but also with DFR down in Dallas, and to see his recruit class photos, and to see his yearbook photos, and then his group photo with his unit in, I think in Nebraska is where this was at. It's truly mesmerizing to be sitting here looking at history. And not to mention, you turn 100 in October.
That's right.
100 in October, and if you can't see the shirt, it took him 99 years to look this good, and I love every minute of this. So, Johnny, just tell us a little bit about your back history. So you're originally from Prosper, is where you were from, correct? You grew up in Prosper or Salina?
We're just not going to make it to...
No. Did you grow up where are you from originally? Here in Salina?
I was born in Saxe, down close to Garland and Wiley. And when I was 6 years old, we moved to Carrollton, and then 12 years old to Prosper. And I finished high school in Prosper, and then went and serviced World War II. And when I got out, I got on the Dallas Fire Department and worked till 1974. I retired. And
So be 50 years this year.
Yeah.
Retired from Dallas, and so truly remarkable.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit. So you said you graduated Prosper High School. There was only 12 in your class.
Yeah.
And then you enlisted into the U.S. Army, correct?
What?
You enlisted into the U.S. Army. You had a deferred enlistment,
Yeah, it was
correct?
Army Air Force.
Army Air
in
Force.
World War II.
And then where did you go for basic training?
I went to, actually, we went to Mineral Wells, then Wichita Falls, and Laredo, and finished our basic training, I guess it was, in Laredo. And then the crews were assembled in Tucson, Arizona, and we got our training out there, and when we finished the crews were all assembled, and we went overseas in a few months, and
So you were originally, you were stationed in Italy? Is that where you were
Yes.
sent? And then so you flew multiple missions in Italy. Was it a B-24 is what you were on, or B-29?
B-24 bomber,
B-20, and you were a
tail gunner.
tail gunner.
Yeah,
And so during one of your missions, you were shot down where?
yeah. On our 8th mission, beg your pardon, on our 4th mission, we got an engine shot out, and they couldn't feather the prop because of the oil pressure. They feather it by oil pressure, and the wind kept turning that prop till it burned it up, and then the prop and the engine fell off the plane. Well, the pilot says we could make it back fine, but also in that procedure, it got to gasoline, and we ran out of gas, and 4 of us bailed out, and 6 crash land, but we all survived.
See,
And we were bombing a railway yard in Austria, and we had to cross Yugoslavia and the Adriatic Sea to get back to our base. And just before we got to the Adriatic Sea, well, we went down in Austria. I mean in Yugoslavia. And it was friendly territory, and took 5 days to get back to Italy, and they gave us all a physical, and then they didn't let us fly for about a month, and then we went back to flying, and I flew 18 missions, and the war was over in Europe.
I read a story one time that when you crashed, you already had American money on you, and you spent your money to buy your wife a scarf. Is that correct? That I read that you?
I think so.
You bought your wife a scarf with the money to help you get back across. And so, knowing the story, you were found by British friendlies, correct, to help you get back to Italy.
They put us up in there was a British mission over there in Yugoslavia, rounding up guys like us, and they put us in a hotel that didn't have any furniture, and we slept on the floor, on concrete floors. We on army blankets, and we ate army rations for about 5 days till they got transportation back to Italy. And the first thing they did was, when we got to Italy, they took us to group hospital and gave us a physical, and then back to the base. And like I say, we didn't fly for a while, but one day they had a formation, took us all out there, and they gave us, all of us, a Purple Heart. But I didn't deserve a Purple Heart, but
They thought different. I mean, y'all have a pretty significant story. So, were you drafted, or did you want to go into the
was I drafted?
Yes, sir.
Yes, really, I was drafted. I was when I finished Prosper High School. I was old enough to be drafted, and when I got out of high school, my daddy said, "See if we can get a deferment so I can finish this crop." We had a good cotton crop, so I finished it, and then I was drafted in January 44.
44.
I graduated in 43.
Now, what did your parents do growing up? What was their jobs?
Oh, they were always farmers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they were all farmers, and so you deferred so you can go in, finish up the cotton farm.
We worked on the farm all the time. I worked on the farm from the time I was 6 years old. I had 4 older sisters, and I worked with them. Sometimes we were playing around more than we was working.
Yeah. No, and if you know anything about the Salina Prosper area, now it's suburbia. It's changed, but back then it was a rural farm area, and it's just unique to hear that story that you grew up, you had a cotton farm here working on it, and then now you come look at Prosper and Salina and there's just buildings everywhere. It's not the same look anymore. And so when you came back, once you were discharged in 45, right?
Yeah.
You got out in 45?
All the military, they were discharging guys by the thousands. That the war was over in Europe and Japan too, and you couldn't get a good job. And I fooled around about a year and a half, 2 years, and I noticed an ad in the paper. They were hiring Dallas Fire Department, but you had to take a test, and it was at the old Crozier Tech High School in Dallas. And I took the test, and veterans, they gave them 5 points on the final exam, and I got in and went to school right just immediately. It was 2 weeks of school.
Just 2 weeks.
Yeah, and then you're assigned to a fire station, and you're just a swing man. Just every station had a day guys be off sick or something. You go and work in one of their places, and.
So you joined the Dallas Fire Department July 1st, 1947.
Yeah.
So that's when you started the Dallas Fire Department. And so looking at how many stations at that time did Dallas actually have?
Dallas had, at just about that time, had 20, well, let me see, just about that time they opened up 29 and 31.
Okay.
So they had 28, I guess, up to then.
That's unbelievable, because if you look at Dallas now, how big their fire department is, it's just absolutely amazing.
I don't think the population of Dallas, but 300,000 or 400,000 then, and now it's a million and something.
Yeah. So when you joined Dallas, you went straight you did 2 weeks of school, which now, depending on what you have, it could be several months. But so you went straight to shift after 2 weeks, correct?
Yeah.
And so you're as a swing man.
Yeah.
So what was it like as a new guy coming in during that time?
Well, you was nervous and scared, but it just, I don't know. You didn't like really being a swing man, moving so many different stations, but it probably took you a year maybe before you got over that, assigned to a station.
Okay.
And
breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Over time, that exposure leads to cancer. Protect yourself with MagnaGrip. To learn more, visit magnagrip.com.
So, about a year swinging around. Were you living in Dallas at the time, or were you living up here in Prosper? Were you living in Dallas when you were?
I was living in Dallas. I lived in Dallas till 70. We moved up here in 70, and I retired in 74. So I lived in Dallas about 20-something years,
And so when you started the Dallas Fire Department, you said your shifts were 1 day on, 1 day off, then 1 day on, right?
That's right.
Every 2 weeks you get 1 day off?
Yeah. Well, the fire station, there was 5 was a full crew, but there was 6 men assigned to it because one guy at the station had a day off every day, and that stayed that way, and you would actually swing in and work in his place, you know.
Right.
Well, not necessarily his place, but
you'd fill a hole that day. Yeah. And so you said in 1953 you then promoted to the rank of driver, correct? Was it 53?
Yeah.
So 53. So from 47 to 53, you were riding backseat. Yeah. Do you have any memorable story you could tell us about during that time? Because that's something that our listeners, they love hearing those types of stories, especially from somebody who, was a firefighter during that time. So do you have a memorable story that you can kind of tell us about?
Well, when I went to 29 Station, it was Lakewood. That was a kind of a luxury section of the town. And one day, we went out to a fire. Then most all the houses were pier and beam, and you could crawl around in the house, and they had floor furnaces. What they heated, it was a furnace in the floor. And they had a fire at a floor furnace in one of those houses, and they gave me the booster line off the truck and sent me out of the house by myself. I was scared to death. And you barely could, scared too, because you couldn't hardly get in there, under there. And you could get trapped maybe, but I put the fire out. And and one other time there at the station, a lady called to it had been raining, and there was some kind of bird bath or animal bath in the ground, and it had water in it, and she said, "There's something out here in it," and they just sent me in my car down there to see what it was, and it was a possum.
Oh no!
And I put it in a 5-gallon bucket and brought it back to the fire station.
I bet they were happy about that. So you were telling me earlier that the apparatus, the trucks you used to drive on, they're old Macs. You said just windshield with the wiper on the inside and outside, right?
Yeah, it was all the engines didn't have cabs, and you're just out in the weather all the time, and we hated it in cold weather or rainy weather, but they had windshields on them, and they'd have wipers inside and out. and I drove one of them like that for 8 or 10 years, and finally got them with cabs, but we never did have one with heat or air conditioner.
Yeah.
Of course, houses didn't have them either,
Right. Yeah, because now we're spoiled because all of our engines have every bell and whistle and heater and AC. So, no, that's truly remarkable to hear. Just because.
Well, I'll tell this story. I was working at a station, and they didn't have a eating fund. Everybody had to bring their own when they came to eat. But they kind of had a rule. When you had a birthday, you had to bring a pie or a cake or something, Well, our lieutenant was fixing to have a birthday, and he said, "My wife won't cook a cake or pie. I'm sorry, but he won't." Well, one of the old guys spoke up and said, "Don't worry about it. I'll bring you something." Well, the next shift we come in, this guy had the prettiest 3-layer cake you ever saw. And we cut that cake, and it was cornbread.
Oh, man. That is awesome. It's funny. Firemen have never changed since those days. They're all still the same.
I made driver and drove the engine, and when they went, I guess went 3 shifts. You know, they had to have another supply of drivers, and anyway, somewhere about that time, I was in the 7th district at number 11 station, and old chief wanted me to be his driver, and I transferred over to him, and we were driving a 57 Ford station wagon, and from Oak Lawn. One night they had a big fire way out in North Dallas. It was 5 or 6 miles, and we had to take a resuscitator, you know, out there, and took an extra man with us because to help operate and carry that resuscitator. And anyway, it was 5 or 6 miles, and the old chief, he never did complain about how fast you drove or anything. And anyway, on the way out there, we made it out there, and actually I saved a little 2-year-old, I think, and the daddy died in the fire. And the next shift, the old chief said, "John, do you know how fast you was going out Midway Road?" This was kind of a country road then. I said, "No, not particularly." He said, "From where I sat, and it was sitting right on the 100. But I don't think we was going that fast.
It was probably stuck. So you took an old Ford station wagon.
Yeah.
Nice. I love that.
It was a good running vehicle.
So that was the chief's vehicle back then?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's wild. So your time in Dallas, you've seen obviously significant history. You saw a lot of history happen in Dallas. So you're obviously working during the Kennedy assassination and a lot of other big events.
Yeah.
What was that like, especially, you know, with our current times, you know, all the craziness that's going on? How was it back then as a firefighter when the president was assassinated and all these events were happening?
Nah, I don't understand what.
So what was it like back then because you were working when Kennedy was assassinated? You were still working down there in Dallas, right?
Yeah.
So what was it like back then when something like that happened?
I don't know. It was terrible, you know. But I was off duty when he was assassinated, and I went by a fireman that I worked with, worked at a cabinet shop off duty, and I went by there, and he asked me, he said, "Did you hear that Kennedy was killed?" And I said, "I did." He said, "I didn't vote for him, but that's not right, you know."
Right.
And
so you retired in 1974. So November 2nd, 1974. You said 50 years.
Yeah.
This November. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, when I retired, you know, salary was about $800 to $1,000, or $1,000 or $1,200 a month.
Oh wow!
And my pension was $710 a month, and now it's about $4,000 a month.
That is, yeah. So you're still in Dallas's pension?
Yeah.
I bet you're loving that. Yeah. No, I've always wanted to ask, I teach at the local fire academy here in town. What advice do you have for new firefighters coming in? Because it's a different generation now.
Well, I wouldn't have much advice for them, but I know there's one thing that happened that kind of bugged me here in town. All these fire stations there, the fire truck used to, when there were 1 or 2, they was out running around and going to restaurants and eating. In 27 years in Dallas, I never went to a restaurant to eat. We always had something at the fire station, or you could bring something, you know.
Right. Yeah. No, that was always one of the things I like. I like cooking at the stations. I like that family feel,
Well,
and it's better food anyways.
I never did cook, but I wash many a dish.
Yeah.
My fingernails still clean.
So, did y'all have a designated cook? Did y'all have a designated cook on shift? Did you have somebody that cooked every time on shift, or did y'all all help out? Was there one cook, or was everybody helping?
Yeah, we usually just had one. But some stations, everybody cooked and rotated, but I never did work at one of those.
Okay. Yeah, I know. When I was on shift, we only had one guy cook because everybody else, it was not worth eating. You always had that one guy you wanted to cook your meals, and he did a great job.
Yeah.
But no, obviously the fire service is not like it was back then anymore. What's one of the things that you see with the fire service now that you wish we still did? Is there anything that you still see that you wish we did now like you guys did back then?
I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, probably keep it at PC. So no,
I don't know enough about the fire service now, actually, you know.
right. No, I understand that, but so obviously for our veterans, right? You being a veteran yourself, what advice do you have for them? What words of encouragement do you have for those in service still? Because obviously, I don't think the military is viewed as like it used to be anymore. I think times have changed, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But what advice do you have for those what words do you have for those still in current service?
Well, there again, I don't know enough about either one of them anymore, you know. I know in service, to this day, I have never tasted beer. And when we were in service over in Italy, we didn't have any place we could buy on the base. We didn't have anything you could buy. But once a month they'd give us rations, and when you get your rations, you get 6 Coke and 6 beer. Well, the engineer, he sent me a Christmas card one year, and he said, "John, I remember the good old days when I could swap a Coke for a beer."
Yeah.
Us guys that didn't drink would swap with them.
I love it. So I don't know what time we got.
We're about at 30.
About 30 minutes. I know you got chair volleyball, all your fun stuff lined up. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I just want to thank you for sitting down with me just for a little bit, just to kind of get your story out there. I really appreciate you. I know you got a lot of stuff going on, and I know it kind of takes some time to get out, but thank you for sitting here having this conversation with us. And
Well, I'm kind of a dumb old guy, and
no, you've got a great story.
I've had a great life. I've had a wonderful life, and I still do, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you've got an amazing life, and so
when I was on the fire department, and my wife had kidney failure and had to be on dialysis, and the doctor told us that Collin County didn't have dialysis in. That was in 50 something, I think. No, I don't know when, but anyway, we had to go to Dallas 3 days a week for dialysis, and so we went through training, and we did our dialysis at home, you know, and so I wasn't a nurse, but I was scared to death all the time, running that blood through the filter, but it worked out good. And she finally got a transplant and lived 18 years with it, so she was went from 56 to 78, and after I retired, I started doing a little work. I'd paint and carpenter, and stuff like that. And I built a few houses, and then worked for a builder for about 10 years, and so I hadn't worked in a long time.
No, you've lived an amazing life. So,
well, like I say, I'm thankful for it. I've had a blessing, and like I say, I still do. I still enjoy life.
Yeah. No, and that's what I love about the city of Salina. We still honor and recognize you as often as we can. We're forever grateful for your service.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Military, but also I'm thankful for your fire service, because you got a story that many don't get to hear, and I'm thankful that you're able to sit here and tell me about it, and just to have a good little chat with you. And these books are truly amazing. Just to see kind of history right here, and then see the young strapping lad that you were. Well, not much has changed in something. You look the same still, just a little older. But man, you look great. You got a great story, had a great life, and it's been an absolute pleasure knowing you. So
I appreciate it.
And I'll be the first to wish you a happy early birthday. So I'm hoping we have a big celebration up here for you.
I've got a lady that gave me this. This is the second one, and I've already got one from her birthday. It says 100 years.
There you go. I love it. That is awesome.
That's a great shirt. It's a great shirt.
No, I'm gonna let you get back to your stuff. Gonna let you go have a good time with everybody. I know.
Yeah, I go back and play volleyball.
I know Danny already threatened me that you were going to whoop us for having to be in here, but I know you're getting ready for it. So, Johnny, I can't thank you enough, brother.
Well, you're welcome.
It's an absolute pleasure. So,
I'm sorry about this hearing.
Oh, no,
it
no.
makes it
No, you are perfectly fine.
kind of hard to answer some questions and.
No, you answered everything. It was great. I loved it. So thank you again. Sons of the Flag Radio, sonsoftheflag.org, all social media at Sons of the Flag.
I still have a car and still drive.
Oh, I see you driving.
And but I'm wanting my birthday this year, my license, so I won't drive anymore.
Oh, okay.
So I might be thumbing a ride from y'all.
Come on, man. We'll throw you in that engine. We'll get you in that engine. We'll give you a ride.
Restaurant.
Yeah, we'll take you to the restaurant.
I couldn't drive one of these big engines with a cab on it.
Right. Thank you so much for bringing these up and letting us see that these are awesome.
Oh, can I see the photo?
Yeah.
Where's your office?
I'm right here downtown where Danny used to be.
Where what?
Where Danny used to be.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Okay.
He is right here.
I'll bring that new book
Yeah.
down.
If you bring it up here, I'll have Danny call me and I'll come over here.
Okay.
That way we keep it here. That way I can sit down with you and not be distracted by those guys.
Yeah.
This one right here?
Yeah, it's him right there.
It's a pretty interesting book. It's got, like I say, it's got all the fire stations and
What part of the plane was he in?
What's that?
What part of the plane?
He was a gunner.
Gunner.
Tail gunner, right? Tail gunner?
yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
So there he is there, and then right there. That's his recruit class there.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Just 2 weeks of trade, that's it? And then they threw you into the fire.
So 2 weeks, yeah. So July 15th, you graduated.
That's wild.
And then right here.
That's awesome. Definitely want to put those in the video.
There's that old American La France right there.
Are you a fire station fireman?
No, sir. Just a cameraman. I get to work with all these guys, though.
Dang, things have certainly changed.
Yeah, I mean,
That's crazy. Is this all about Dallas?
Yeah, this is their 1975, so he retired in 74. So he's got a new one from 2010.
That's crazy.
Jeez. Yeah, if you bring that book up, I would love to. I'll get Danny to let me know when you got it.
I'll show you a picture in the back here if I can find it. Look at those guys standing up on the propeller.
Yeah.
Golly.
That's just half of it.
God.
That is crazy. What's it?
Uh,
That is funny.
Oh man, talk about the time.
we didn't take baths like that over in Italy. When I was there, we used a helmet.
Oh, nice. That is funny. Golly.
Is there any way to describe like what the feeling is being a gunner? Like, I can't imagine being like in that. Like it.
So what was it like sitting as a gunner? Was it
Well, it was, we didn't have, like I say, any fighter opposition, and you were just back there basically riding,
Okay.
but we were basically bombing railway yards, supply lines to Germany, and bombing oil refineries and all that, supply lines. They finally run out of fuel, and that's one reason probably the war ended in Europe. They didn't have any. And actually, they got jet fighter planes, but they didn't have any fuel for them.
Wow.
So that's probably the reason the war ended. But
When you were shot down over Yugoslavia?
Yep.
When you were shot down over Yugoslavia, was that enemy territory?
It was friendly.
Friendly. Oh,
Yep.
okay. So you were shot down over friendly territory?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was last one that was getting too low to bail out, and I got out, bailed out, and opened the parachute, and just immediately I was on the ground.
Oh, golly.
And they took me up to a house there, and it fed me almonds and some kind of dried fruit. And then they brought out a bottle of something like wine, and I tasted of it. And like I say, to this day, I never tasted anything like that. And never smoked. And
That's rare.
and then a little while after we got up that house, a bunch of teenage girls came in. And they were pretty little girls, dressed pretty good, and they were teenagers, and they took my parachute and cut the lines off of it, and I wasn't going to keep it, and the parachute is made out of silk, so I'm sure they made silk dresses out of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. They were made out of silk. I'm still recording, by the way, so I'm going to throw.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's awesome.
Well,
Fascinating.
when we were training out at Tucson, Arizona, and we didn't have a bombardier. All the crew was assembled except the bombardier. And we'd flown 2 or 3 missions, and one day we were going to practice bomb, and we got our bombardier. And so us peons, the enlisted guys had to load the bombs, little 100-pound bombs. And we had about 6 or 8 of them loaded, and that bombardier was up in his compartment. First thing you know, we was standing there putting them in, and they started dropping. Well, they're not armed, they won't explode, but you don't even try to think about that. We started running, and A little bit. Well, when it was all over and we were laughing about it, the navigator said, "I tell you one thing," said, "Johnny's the fastest one here." Said, "When I got ready to run, he was coming back."
I would be terrified even not armed.
No.
Well, then we got overseas, and one night they made us stand guard duty, one guy to each plane, and you stay in the plane. Well, the next morning I heard this noise, and I got checking, and they were unloading 500-pound bombs. They'd drop it out on concrete or asphalt and roll it out and drop another one.
God.
I didn't have no place to run.
Oh my gosh.
That's just, it's 500 pounds, 100 pounds.
Yeah, there was a wire on each bomb that armed it, and you hooked it to the rack up in the bomb bag compartment. When it dropped out, it armed the bomb.
Oh.
And then one time we carried 3 2,000-pound bombs.
God. Yeah. So I just looking at this book. This is super. This is awesome.
So this isn't what he wrote.
No.
But this is
No.
That's much older.
Yeah, he was in the Max.
Oh yeah, we'll let him.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Well,
Thank
you're
you
welcome.
so much.
Well,